Welcome to Saved and Sober Sand Springs, where addiction meets recovery. Welcome to Sand Springs Saved and Sober. My name is Jay Johns. I am the lead facilitator for our recovery program here. Today we're going to be interviewing Jim Blodgett. He is a former addict. He's one of the teachers here at Saved and Sober. He's going to tell us a little bit about his story. Jim is he goes over the steps each week with our students, with our recovery team, with our recovery class. Jim, can you tell us just a little bit about yourself?
My name is Jim. As Jay had said, I am a team member of the Save and Sober Ministry. I do the 12 steps. I grew up in a alcoholic family and pursued or ended up becoming a drug addict for quite some time, which led me to being convicted of drug dealing and sentenced to prison for 7.5 years. When I got out, started using again, all the way up to the point where I OD'd and woke up in the hospital. And that's when I decided that it was time to make a change in my life.
There's a lot of things that people don't understand that if they've never been addicted to anything, and we're going to go over just a few questions. First off, Jim, for people that are meeting you for the first time, tell us just a little about your story and what brought you into recovery.
As I said, I was addicted to drugs, heroin to be exact, and that led me to overdosing, and actually my heart stopped beating. And if it wasn't for the grace of God and one of the doctors there, by giving me a shot of adrenaline to my heart, I probably wouldn't be here today. So that's how I got to that point in recovery. I was laying there on the bed afterwards, and I just knew that it was time to make a change. I was finally ready. There was no place else for me to go except for upward.
Would you describe that as your bottom? And if so, what made you decide to walk away from everything? Was it the near-death experience? Was it your lack of drive? What made you want to get clean?
Well, naturally, it was the near-death experience that shook me finally to my core. And at that moment, I just asked God, I said, I can't do this no more. You're gonna have to, I need you to take it from me, because I can't kick it by myself.
How would you describe that near-death experience, the moment when you realized, when you woke up in the hospital and you realized I died? How would you explain what you felt in that moment?
That was the end to me. That was my rock bottom. I knew right then there was two ways to go. Either I went ahead and OD'd again, killed myself right then and there, or I started relying on something outside of me to help me get out of my addiction.
Those are some very powerful turning points. I've never been on a table and woke up and realized, hey, I almost died. What made you decide you wanted a different life? Not just to get clean, but what made you decide you wanted a different life? You wanted to get away from the old Jim.
I finally realized that the person that I was running from was the person that was trying to save me, if that makes sense. I knew deep inside that I didn't want that lifestyle no more. I was done with it. It was time for me to lay it down and reach for something different.
Would you say fear pushed you to that point?
Absolutely, absolutely. And that's because at that point I was sober. Before, when I was using, fear didn't bother me because I didn't have no fear.
Would you say sobriety has a way of taking away natural fear and replacing it with unnatural thought processes?
I think sobriety heightens your fear. It makes you more aware of what you're doing because when you're using, you're numbing. You're numbing your feelings. You're numbing, what your thoughts. And once you stop using, then you're no longer numbing that. You're owning it and trying to accept it and learn from it. Because before, I didn't have those skills of coping with, my addiction. And so that's what I started, developing from a little early baby stage, that I know this is not right. I've got to make changes.
What did early recovery look like for Jim? And what were some of the battles people may not realize come with getting sober?
I think I was afraid. I was afraid of myself more than anything else. But and it was a whole new world to me being sober because I had been using for such a long time that I was a different person. And being sober, I was a different person. Being sober was a person that, started feeling things and started thinking about things and contemplating all the mistakes that I had made in my life.
You said it made you start feeling things. When you say that, are you talking, what kind of emotions were you feeling that had been suppressed by your addiction?
Remorse, mainly. I was just sorry for looking back during my addictive life at all the mistakes that I had made, all of the people that I had hurt, family, friends, coworkers. It just made me start, it humbled me.
Did you go through a 12-step program?
I did. I've been through a couple of different 12-step programs. And so, Alcoholics Anonymous and NA. And so, yeah.
So you were talking about, you were feeling things that you hadn't felt before, like the remorse and all the things that you had done before. So I believe it's step 8. It's talking about making amends.
Correct.
Is that one of the hardest steps for you? Would you say was making amends?
I would say yes. But I'll also add that the hardest person on my list of people that I needed to make amends to was making amends to myself. I had to understand that I have to forgive myself for the things that I've done, not to make them go away and not to make them any less worse than what they were. But I've learned that I have to take care of myself first, and then I can go on to take care of others.
We focus a lot on making amends. We focus a lot that there are several steps that's a key portion, making, taking a conscious or making a conscious inventory, going through. But you said making amends to yourself. That is something that I believe is overlooked. We talk a lot about making amends to others. We talk a lot about making wrongs right again, doing what we can without hurting ourselves or hurting other people.
Right.
So when we say making amends to yourself, What did that look like for Jim? What was the step that you realized I have to get me right first before I can make amends to anybody else? I have to make amends right with me.
Well, when I started thinking about making amends, my sponsor, um, which was a wonderful person, he, told me um, to, look over everything. And when I gave him, I made my inventory and gave it to him to look over. He looked over and he said, "This is pretty good, pretty extensive, but you missed one person." And I said, "What do you mean?" Because he didn't know nothing about the people that I've wronged, and and he said, "Well, you don't have you down there." And I said, "Me? Why do I need?" And he said something that stuck with me ever since. If you cannot love and accept yourself, then you cannot love or accept another person.
That's good.
And that shook me to my core. It really sunk in deep.
I know you came to New Life Tabernacle years after sobriety, correct?
Correct.
Since finding New Life Tabernacle, how has the apostolic doctrine and the apostolic movement affected you in the way you think about sobriety and the way you approach sobriety?
I finally learned how to open up and allow the Holy Spirit to come into my life, and that freed me up more to, number one, rely on the Holy Spirit, but to open my heart up to other things. And as far as sobriety, going through the 12 steps, I always had a bit of an issue with the faith part of, of releasing and giving my power over, or finding a power greater than me. I mean, I understood it, but I just never felt like I really embraced that part.
How is your relationship with God? Obviously, it's grown the last several years. How has it helped you in the way you talk about sobriety with others, and how's your relationship with God helped you reach out to others about sobriety?
For me, my relationship with God pushes me more. He expects, or maybe he did before, but I just never paid any attention to it. Now I'm a little bit more aware of my relationship with Jesus, and he pushes me to reach out and to not only tell others about recovery, but also tell others about him.
How has your walk with God helped things change when other things couldn't? When a 12-step program was there, it was helping, but it couldn't quite get you where you needed to be. How has God stepped in and made it to where things are more manageable or easier?
Because he's in control of everything. And finally came to the realization that if I have something that I can't handle, I know where to go with it. I know to give it to him and pray about it and let him take it. And it's not that it makes it go away. It makes it so that I'm not beating myself up over it, and I can pray about it and meditate about it, and eventually that will come to me.
What would you say recovery has taught you most about grace and identity and just overall life in general?
The main thing it's taught me is to love myself the way I am. And once I came to grips with that, it makes it easier for me to love other people the way they are. Doesn't mean that I always like them. And I'm not always like their actions or what they do, but I love them. I've learned to love other people, and through the grace of God, I know that that's what I'm supposed to do. is to love others. And so it makes it easier for me to spread my message. And I know that my message is not really my message. My message is Jesus's message through me, through me. So
We took what the enemy or what addiction tried to use to ruin us. We've taken that. We've turned that instead of a tragic story, we've turned that into a testimony, which transitions into, if God can do it for me, God can pull me out of my addiction, God can pull you out as well. And I feel like a lot of people, they look at us now for who we are now.
right.
And they're like, oh, look at Jim. Jim's got it all together. He's never really had a struggle. How does he know what it's like to deal with the things that I've done? And maybe people are looking at myself and they're looking, look at Jay. He's got it together. He's got a wife. He's got kids, but he doesn't know what the struggle is to battle with addiction. And what people don't understand is we struggled just like they did.
Right.
We battled just like they did. We fought just as hard as they did. For me, what helped me was, step one, I admitted I can't do this on my own. For my recovery, I went to an altar. I found grace at an altar, and God began to change me at my place at rock bottom. But for those who don't know, who don't understand, they just look at people on the outside shell and they think, well, they wouldn't understand. But what they don't know is there's so many people, especially here at New Life Tabernacle, that are just like you and myself, who have struggled, who've battled addiction. We have people who were just bad alcoholics. They were so bad they were hiding stuff because they didn't want their family to know. But it's like you and I both know you can't hide things from people. We think we're really good at hiding our addiction. We think we're good at hiding our substance abuse, but in reality, we're only fooling ourselves. But if they could ever understand, it wasn't Jay that made the difference. It wasn't Jim that made the difference. It was an altar, and it was a God who said, I love you so much. I'm willing to sacrifice myself to help you get out of where you are. I wish everybody could get just one experience with God. We watch people come in every week who have learned to push those feelings away, like you were speaking about earlier. They've taken the emotion, they've taken the feeling, and they've pushed it. They've learned to suppress it, or the drugs have covered them and keep them from coming to light. But we watch them come here every Thursday night at 7:30, and we start our service off, and we watch people who haven't felt in years begin to feel the presence of God move. What would you just say to somebody who's never been to Saved and Sober, that they want to be clean, but they've never been to a Saved and Sober meeting? They say, I want to come, but what am I going to expect when I walk through the doors of Saved and Sober? What would you tell somebody to expect?
The first thing I would like to say is everybody's different. And everybody's going to get a different experience from Saved and Sober. My recovery is not your recovery, and your recovery is not mine. Everybody's different. The main thing I would say is when you come to Saved and Sober, just drop everything, come in with an open heart and an open mind. We're not asking you to accept Jesus tonight. We're not asking you to accept our faith. We're just asking you to be open enough to experience what's being presented that evening, that moment, that time. Don't stack stuff on top of it. Just be basic, understand, just listen, and take it home with you after the meeting and rumble it around and see what you think and what you feel. If you have questions, contact one of us. We're accessible. We'll talk to you. Come back to the next week. Be open to find out what else might be there. But if you come in with a bunch of preconceived ideas about, well, this is going to be this way, this is going to be that way, I think you're really doing yourself a disservice. A whole lot of recovery and a whole lot of the 12-step program is based on humility. And we have to learn to control that. We have to let our egos go, because our egos is what fueled our addiction for the most part, until we got to a stage where we were no longer egotistical. We were just plain addicted. But so we just have to, just drop all the pretenses, just come in, just spend an evening with us, listen to what we have to say, and ask questions.
One final question for you. If somebody was to come up to you off the street and they're battling addiction, and they said, my name is so-and-so, and I'm addicted, what advice would you give them to either encourage them or bring them to safety? So what kind of advice, what would you tell somebody who's battling? Maybe they feel hopeless. Maybe they feel it, because that's what addiction does. Addiction leaves us feeling like nobody cares. We're at rock bottom. We are hopeless. What would you tell somebody who's in that spot, and they just need a word? They need maybe it's encouragement. What would you tell somebody who's active in addiction but looking for something different?
There's so many adages out there that come to mind, but I would say that the one that comes to mind the strongest to me right off the top of my head is keep coming back. Go an hour without using, without drinking, without smoking a bowl, and then try another hour and try another hour. And, eventually you're going to, maybe get to the point where it's not so hard, but it's going to be hard. I'm not going to kid nobody. It's going to be hard, but there's a family of people at Saved and Sober that are here to help you. Well, whatever we can do, but we're not going to feed your addiction, but we're going to help you overcome that addiction. We'll give you advice. We'll talk to you. We'll pray with you, whatever you need. But the main thing is you've got to be open and acceptable.
Well, this is going to conclude our very first episode. Jim, I say it every week. I can't think of a better person to teach the steps. You've worked the steps. You've experienced both sides of addiction, the pull, and now you're experiencing the desire not to go back.
Right.
So thank you for everything you do for Saved and Sober. Thank you for every hour that you pray, for every day that you fast. Thank you for everything you do for Saved and Sober. That is going to conclude our first episode of Saved and Sober Sand Springs. We will see you on the next one.